Hi, my name is Kevin Fernandez, and welcome to my channel, Gamers Genie. Today, we're going to learn the animal adapting game, Evolution. This 2 to 6 player game designed by Dominik Karpuchitz, Dmitry Nor, and Sergei Mekin, and published by North Star Games. It is the dawn of time, and new species are coming in for air and learning to breathe and survive. However, different creatures are adapting to learn to eat food and being able to survive better and better. And some are evolving to go after you, a defenseless little animal. Will you be able to adapt to survive your environment, or will you end up going extinct like the dodo? Find out as we go to the table and learn to play Evolution. Place the watering hole in the center of the table. Place the food tokens aside. This is the food bank. Give each player one food screen. Shuffle the deck of trait cards and place them face down on the table. This is the draw deck. Randomly determine the first player and give them the first player marker to that player. Place a species board in front of any player who does not have one. If this is the first round of the game, then every player will get a species board. Put a green wooden marker on the one space of the population track, and place a brown wooden marker on the one space of the body size track. Deal each player 3 cards from the draw deck, plus 1 card for each species board they have in front of them. If the draw deck runs out, or if it ran out when the species went extinct on the previous round, this will be the final round of the game. Shuffle the discard pile into a new deck. And that completes the setup. The number at the bottom right of each trait card represents the amount of plant food that will be placed in the watering hole. Each player secretly chooses one trait card from their hand and puts it face down on the watering hole. These are the food cards that will be revealed during the feeding phase to determine how much plant food will be available for the round. Starting with the first player and moving clockwise around the table, a player may play as many or as few trait cards as they want. There is no limit to the number of cards a player can save in their hand for a later time. Play will go one time around the table, which means every player will get one turn during this phase. There are 3 possible things a player can do with each trait card. They may be done in any order and multiple times. A player may place a trait card face down above one of their species. A species may not have any duplicate trait cards and may not have more than 3 trait cards. A player may discard a trait card face up into the discard pile to get a new species. They take a new species board and put a green and brown wooden block marker on the one space of the population and body size track. The new species must be placed either to the left or right of the player's existing species. They may not be placed between an existing species. A player may discard a trait card into the discard pile to increase the body size or population of any of their species by 1. A species cannot move its wooden marker beyond body size 6 or population 6. but a species can effectively have a larger body size with a trait card like hard shell. A player may remove a trait card from any of their species anytime during their play card's turn and place it face up in the discard pile. This may be done to make room for another trait card because the trait is no longer advantageous to the species. Players do not get any other benefit. When everyone has had a chance to play cards, flip the newly played trait card face up. Check around the table for any trait cards that have this icon in the top left corner. These cards have effects that might trigger before the food cards are revealed. If a player has more than one of these cards in play, they choose the order in which the traits activate. The first player reveals the food cards on the watering hole, adds up the number on these cards, and places that much plant food from the food bank into the watering hole. If the total of food cards is a negative number, there is a plant food on the watering hole. Remove that much plant food revealed from the revealed food cards are placed in the discard pile. In this phase, players will take turns feeding one species at a time in a rush to eat from a limited supply of food. Play will move clockwise around the table until every species is done feeding, or all hungry species cannot eat. This means a player's species is done feeding, or all hungry species cannot eat. This means a player might get several feeding turns during the feeding phase, but it also means that a player might not get a single feeding turn if food is scarce. Several words are defined terms: take, attack, hungry. See the glossary on page 9 of your rule book for these definitions. Beginning with the first player and continuing clockwise, each player must feed one of their species. A player may pass only if none of their species are hungry, if it is not possible to feed any of their hungry species. Passing on a feeding turn does not prohibit a player from feeding on a future feeding turn in the same feeding phase. When a species takes food, place the food above the population track starting with Zone 1, population space. A species may never take more food than it has population unless it has the card fat tissue. Take one food from the watering hole and place it onto the species board of the species you are feeding. Some traits like foraging or cooperation modify the amount of food a species takes from the watering hole. So, since I do have cooperation, I can take another feeding from here and I can give it to the species next to mine. He's full, but he has fat tissue, so I can store it right there for a later turn. A species with a carnivore trait is a carnivore. Carnivores never take plant food, not even with the help of traits such as long neck or cooperation. They feed by attacking other species. A player may attack any species, including their own. Carnivores continue to attack even if the watering hole runs out of plant food. A carnivore can attack other species only if all of the following are true. Carnivores are hungry, or has the option to eat because of traits like fat tissue. Carnivores' body size are greater than the body size of the species being attacked. The carnivore has the trait necessary to overcome the attack species' defensive traits, like pack hunting is a good example of those cards. After a carnivore has attacked another species, reduce the population of the attacked species by 1. If this reduces its population to below the amount of food already eaten, place the excess food behind the attacked player food screen. If this reduces its population to 0, we'll talk about that later in the video. Take meat food from the food bank equal to the attacked species body size and place it on the attacking carnivore's species board. A species must eat if it is hungry and there is food available. This means a carnivore must eat a species with horns if it is the only legal target, even if it is that player's own species. When a species eats from the watering hole, it takes 1 plant food unless a trait modifies the amount. Example, that would be the card foraging. When a carnivore attacks another species, it takes meat food equal to the body size of the attacked species. Non-carnivores normally eat plant food, but they can also eat meat food with trait cards such as scavenger or cooperation. A carnivore may never eat plant food under any circumstances. A species can never take more food than the population unless it has fat tissue. Feeding ends when all species are unable to eat, or when those species have a choice because of fat tissue or intelligence, choose not to eat. If a species did not eat food equal to its population, all hungry population from that species are lost. Move the population marker down to the number of population that receive food. If all the population on the species are hungry, it goes extinct. A player removes the food from their species board and places it behind their food screen. Any plant food remaining on the watering hole would just stay there. The game ends if the draw deck ran out during phase 1, deal 1 card for this round, or if the draw deck had to be shuffled due to species going extinct on the previous round. If the game did not end past the incredibly awesome first player token to the left and begin a new round starting with phase 1 deal cards. If any population of the species is reduced to 0, it goes extinct, and the owner does the following. Discard the trait cards on that species and draws 1 card from the draw deck for each discarded card. If the draw deck runs out of cards, shuffle the discard pile to form a new draw deck. The next round will be the final round of the game. Discard the species board. Place any food on the species board behind the food screen. If the species that went extinct was between 2 species, close the gap between the adjacent species boards. Reminder, if a player loses their last species, they will receive a free one at the start of the next deal cards phase. Scoring is an attempt to gauge how well your species flourish during the game and how likely they are to thrive in the future. The amount of food a species has eaten over time is a proxy often used by evolutionary biologists to measure the relative success of a species. The game ends at when the draw deck runs out during phase 1. Deal cards of the current round, or if the draw deck has had to be shuffled due to a species going extinct on the previous round. Each food behind a player's food screen is worth 1 point. Each surviving species is worth points equal to its population. So build that up. Each trait card on a surviving species is worth 1 point. Add up each player's points to determine the winner. If there is a tie, the player with the most trait card points is the winner. If there is still a tie, the player with the most population points is the winner. If there's still a tie, then you immediately order a pizza, either meat lovers or vegetarian pizza, and play again. There are special rules for a 6-player play, as well as a 2-player play, but I'll let you discover those for yourself. If the space is an issue, players should flip their species boards over and play them vertically. And as for the 2-player rules, We'll talk about that in our gameplay video. And that's all you need to know to play Evolution. If you have any questions about Evolution, please put them in the comments below and we'll get to them as soon as possible. If you really enjoyed this channel and enjoy the content that we make, please consider becoming a Patreon supporter. I'll put a link in the description below for our Patreon page. If you're new to the channel, just hit that subscribe button and hit the notification bell whenever we have a new video out. If you are already a subscriber and you're not quite sure if you want to support us with our Patreon page just yet, all you need to do to support us is just keep telling people about our channel and what we do. Be on the lookout for our upcoming gameplay video on Oregon Trail. But until then, thanks for the views.